Okay, today we're going to be talking about objects in English. So, for many of you, you already know about subjects and verbs. So let's take a look at the 4 sentences here. For each subject, the subject is the same for all 4 sentences. The subject is I. I am the one who is doing this action. Now let's talk about the verb. The verb of a sentence is the action. What is the subject doing? In the first sentence, I, the subject, sent. That is the action. In the second sentence, I gave. That is the action. In the third sentence, the action, the verb, is bought. And in the fourth sentence, the action is got. Now, in some sentences, that's all you need. You just need a subject and a verb to make a complete sentence. However, many verbs need to have an object after them. Here are some verbs like that: sent, gave, bought, and got. In the first sentence here, I sent. Okay, that's really not enough information. What did you send? In this case, I sent an email. How about in the second sentence? I gave. Okay, but now I want to know, what did you give? What did you give? A present. In the third sentence, I bought. What did I buy? Coffee. And in the fourth sentence, I got. What did I get? I got a new bed. Okay, so in some sentences, that's all you need. We call this a direct object. So the direct object comes right after the verb in this sentence. However, in these sentences, we would like to add even more information. Let's take a look at this first sentence again. I sent an email. Okay, that's good information. But when I send an email, I send it to somebody. Who did I send it to? My boss. In the second sentence, I gave a present. Again, when you give somebody something, you give something to somebody. So I gave a present to who? To my friend. In the third sentence, I bought coffee. Okay, that's a good sentence, but in this case, I didn't buy it for me. I bought it for my mother. Then in the fourth sentence, I got a new bed for my son. Who did I buy the new bed for? My son. So the direct object over on this side, the direct object, it is the object of the action. But after it, in all of these sentences, we have the indirect object. Now, in these sentences, one of the things you can notice about the indirect object is that it comes right after a preposition. So some people call these prepositional phrases. What I'm going to teach you next, though, is another way to write these sentences. So this is one way. One way is to make them a prepositional phrase, to put them after a preposition like to or for. Next, I will teach you how to do this a different way. Let's Let's take a look at the first sentence we did. I sent an email to my boss. This is great, but there's another way we can say it. We can say, I sent my boss an email. What do you see is different between these two sentences? Well, first we have the subject. The subject is the same. What about the verb? Nope. The verb is the same. Where is the direct object? Ah, the direct object changed places. So in the sentence, in the first version, I sent what? I sent an email. This is the direct object. But in the second sentence, I put an email at the end. And where is the indirect object? Right over here, my boss. Remember, I had to use this preposition to. In the second sentence here, I just put my boss right after the verb. So we have two different ways to make the same sentence. But do you see something that's missing? Something in the first sentence that's not in the second sentence? That's right, the preposition to. We don't need it. If we put the indirect object right after the verb, we don't need that preposition anymore. Okay? So let's do a little bit of practice. Here is our second sentence from the beginning. I gave a present to my friend. Once again, where is the subject? I. Where is the verb? Gave. Where is the direct object? A present. Do I have an indirect object here? Did I give a present to somebody or for somebody? Yes, I do have an indirect object. And that is my friend. Now the only thing left in this sentence is the preposition. So in this case, if we first have the direct object and then have the indirect object, we need that preposition. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to think about how you can change this sentence to first have the indirect object and then the direct object. What is the new sentence going to be? Here it is. Did you make the same sentence as me? I gave my friend a present. So how did we make this? Well, the subject is the same. The verb is the same. And all I did was change the positions of the direct object and the indirect object. And one more thing, don't forget the preposition. I just took out the preposition. Here's another example. Okay, here we have, I bought coffee for my mother. I'm going to give you a few seconds to think of how you can change this sentence to make the indirect object come before the direct object. Here it is. Did you write the same sentence? I bought my mother coffee. Okay. The subject is the same. The verb is the same. Again, the only change I made was changing the places for the direct object and the indirect object. And finally, I took away the preposition. How about this sentence? How can you change it? Here you go. I got my son a new bed. Again, we just exchanged the direct and indirect object and took out the preposition. You can also do this for sentences when they are longer and include more information after the indirect object. So for example, in this sentence, I, the subject, bought, the verb, a new bed is the direct object, and my son is the indirect object. But we still have more in this sentence. We have when he turned 3, the when. We can leave that in the same place at the end of the sentence. So if we rewrite that sentence, it becomes, I bought my son a new bed when he turned 3. Again, the subject's the same. The verb is the same. We still have a new bed as the direct object and my son as the indirect object. We got rid of that preposition for, and we just kept when he turned 3. We don't have to do anything else to the sentence. One other thing that you have to think about is replacing a person with a pronoun. So for example, my boss. Now if your boss is a woman, you could replace my boss with her. If your boss is a man, you can replace my boss with him. Can you say, I sent an email to he? No. Can you say, I sent an email to she? No. When you are replacing a person who is an indirect or a direct object, when it is an object, you need to replace with an object pronoun. Here are some object pronouns. If it is the subject, you would say I, but as an object, you change to me. I need the report. Please give it to who? To me. You, luckily, you don't need to change you. It's the same in both subject and object position. He can be the subject, but when it's the object, must be him. Same thing with she. She is great, if it's the subject, but when she is the object, we change to her. How about we? We have a question, but when we are the object, we change to us. And also with they. They can be the subject of a sentence, but when it's an object, you need to change to them. Let's try replacing objects with object pronouns. Where is the indirect object in this sentence? My boss. We just did this one. We don't need to say my boss. If your boss is a woman, you would say, I sent her an email. If your boss is a man, you would say, I sent him an email. Where is the indirect object in this sentence? My mom. I think your mom is probably a woman, so I gave her a present. How about in this sentence? Where is the indirect object? Your son. Your son is probably a boy, so you can say you got him a computer for his birthday. Okay guys, I hope this is helpful. Please try answering the questions below.